Yeah, office surfing with a chair. So, hello, it's Tuesday afternoon. It's 4 p.m. in Switzerland. And today it's really in Switzerland. It's Space Café Web Talk time. We are broadcasting live from the ongoing Unitier Space Security Conference 21 at the United Nations in Geneva. So our Space Café Web Talk, 33 minutes with Robin Geiss, will begin very, very soon. Thanks for joining us for our talk today. And as always, we appreciate your participation and your ongoing feedback. Any response is highly valuable for us and helps us to improve. I'm Torsten Kriening, your host and publisher of SpaceWatch.Global, and happy to have Chiara here with me today. That feels almost like a real Space Café, but we try to improve, as you all know. So we are a Switzerland-based online platform for information in and about space and new space activities in a geopolitical context. And I know many of you are already familiar with our website, our bi-weekly and daily newsletters, and the Space Café podcast. Our latest episode released this morning, or actually I think it's still stuck in the delivery. It will be released tomorrow morning, features Andrew Jones. And Andrew Jones is no one else than a world-recognized space journalist on China's space activities. And also for our fans of more audio content, we started a new format called Space Café Radio, where we will talk with interesting people on the road, on shows and conferences. And the first episode is online on the website. Many more will follow as we capture a few absolute highlights for you here in Geneva. But again, your feedback is highly appreciated if we are on the right track and if we serve you well. We keep also our fan shop open online for you to support us actively and become a Space Watcher. Our edition 1 has cool items for you, your friends, and the ones you love. And your support is needed to keep our work alive. If you have missed any of our previous web talks, we have an archive available, as you know, on our website, in the event section, and on YouTube. Today, it's a very special event for us. It's our first Space Café from the field, and I can tell you, we were sweating blood and tears to make this happen. And it's a very special event. I also have a very special guest today, our Dr. Robin Geiss, and he is the director of Unitier, United Nations Institute for Disarmament Research. And Robin started his new role in April this year, so just 6 months ago, and brings to the position close to 20 years of experience in peace and security with focus on the impact of new technologies in this area. Most recently, he served as the director of the Glasgow Center for International Law and Security at the University of Glasgow and as a Swiss chair of international humanitarian law with the Geneva Academy of International Humanitarian Law and Human Rights. He was a visiting professor at the Paris School of International Affairs at Sciences Po in Paris. And Dr. Geiss holds a PhD in law from the University in Kiel and obtained an LLM in international legal studies from the New York University. Due to the tight schedule today, we had the chance to record this talk shortly before the broadcast, so it is almost live. And you will see it's the same room, it's the same environment, but it happened just an hour ago. So please send your questions and we will forward them to the team to write their answers to you, and we will publish that. With that, here is our Space Café from today. Robin, great pleasure having you here in our Space Café live in Geneva today. 6 months ago, you started your position here. Congrats to that, and for that outstanding and an absolute potentially challenging role. What made you interested in the director's position? And because filling big shoes following Renata Dwan?
So, well, first of all, thank you for having me, and thanks for your kind words. Many things made me interested in this role, and in fact, you know, I've been in Geneva before in another role, but I've been following Unitier from a distance for quite a while and for many years. And I've always been intrigued by this ability to develop innovative ideas and thinking and then turn them into practical results. So that's been one feature, certainly. And perhaps, when we think of more contemporary issues, I mean, just look at the global security environment and the state that global disarmament is in currently. It's not looking too rosy, and certainly there is a sense of urgency that we need to do more in this field. Tensions growing across various domains, even among nuclear powers. We're seeing this weaponization in outer space increasingly. New arms races in the digital sphere across not just traditional military spheres, but also scientific, economic lines, quite challenging actually. So all of this taken together makes for a very complex mix of things. And I think UNIDIR is in many ways uniquely placed to address these issues. It has a couple of unique features which I think are quite important. Its convening ability to hold inclusive dialogue like we're doing today with the Outer Space Security Conference, of course, and with many other events that we're running. And then, UNIDIR occupies that unique nexus between the UN system, of which we're part, of course, governments and the diplomatic community, but also civil society, the military, the academic sector. And I think that positions us very, very well to handle the complexities that really come with the challenges to 21st century disarmament.
I see. It sounds you're a man that is looking for the challenges.
Well,
Chapeau.
I think we all should be. This is the decade of action. And if you've looked at the Secretary General's Common Agenda, which was released very recently, it's either breakthrough or breakdown. I think we very much want to focus on the breakthrough side of things. So yes, we are looking for not just, if I may, the challenges, but really the contentious issues. We should not shy away from them.
That's right. Before we dig into the conference that is ongoing, so what is your agenda for UNIDIR under your leadership now?
So last year, 2020, this General Assembly underscored the importance, the relevance, and the timeliness of UNIDIR's work. And so in that sense, I think we're well positioned to continue many of the good things that the Institute has been doing over the past couple of years. But of course, we have some new ideas as well. New ideas with regard to the strategic research vision that we have with all the challenges developing so swiftly. We've upgraded most of our programs. We've planned ahead up until 2025 to give our stakeholders more of a long-term perspective as to what it is that we will prioritize in our research in collaboration with partners, of course. That's one aspect. The other, if you want a slogan, is getting disarmament out of the box. It's a simplification, of course, but it does mean that at UNIDIR we will want to look more into the wider linkages that disarmament has. It's not just the technical treaties of the 20th century. There's a lot more. There's interlinkages with development, very obviously so in the outer space domain, of course, but also in other fields. There is the issue of conflict prevention, peace building, and global security more broadly that will need to be considered if we want to make sense of the very complex challenges that disarmament and arms control issues are posing to the global security environment today. Another issue that I would add in terms of what we have in mind going forward is more global public outreach, more next generation youth engagement. That's becoming quite a priority, not just for us, I think for the UN more generally, but clearly climate change is occupying everyone's minds, very clearly so, with younger generations, and very rightly so. But I think it remains a reality that if we don't disarm, if we don't manage to diffuse the many tensions and conflicts that we're seeing around the world, then we're probably not going to get very far with any efforts in tackling either climate change or implementing the Sustainable Development Goals. So to me, disarmament, arms control is still very much at the heart of many of the efforts that we're undertaking to make the world a better and more secure and peaceful place.
Absolutely. Very challenging tasks on your plate. So let's talk about the outgoing conference. What can you tell us about that in brief?
Okay, in brief, there's a lot to be said about the
Absolutely,
conference.
yeah, and we have more
yeah,
questions
I
prepared.
know, we do. So, to get us started on this one, and perhaps in general terms, it's one of our flagship events, the the Outer Space Security Conference. We've been running it for a while, and will continue to do so in the future. It's a flagship event, as I said, together with our Innovations Dialogue and the Cyber Stability Conference, 3 annual flagship events that we're running at UNIDIR. It's a 2-day conference, and the real purpose for it is to serve as a hub for inclusive and constructive dialogue. To bring together not just the diplomatic community here in Geneva, but now that we're holding it virtual as well, from a wider global reach, of course. So not just the diplomatic community here, but also stakeholders with different backgrounds, military backgrounds, civil society backgrounds, academia, science, and industry, of course, increasingly relevant in the outer space domain. So an inclusive, constructive dialogue, that's what we're trying to achieve with this conference. And let me also say that, like all the things that we do at UNIDIR, we're 95% voluntary funded. So in order to run the conference, of course, it wouldn't be possible if it wasn't for our generous donors. And in this regard, I'm extremely grateful to the financial contributions and the organizational support that we're receiving from the governments of the Russian Federation, China, People's Republic of China, the French Republic, and then also the Fondation pour la Recherche Stratégique, and they have EU money, which we're using, and the Secure World Foundation. That's the setup, and these are the partners and supporters that make the Outer Space Conference possible.
Quite some changes to the last year, so the Holy See was missing. Okay, when you see how or who participated this year, you mentioned that you're going abroad, the Geneva diplomat or community. So what was the response to participate? So who was there at the end, online or virtual? I mean, we come to the experience about the hybrid event then later on. But so from these participants, so what was the mix?
So the mix, it's still ongoing, and in the virtual domain, of course, people come and go. But the answer to this is quite simply anyone. This open Outer Space Conference OS21 was open to a wider audience, and that was really part of the idea this year. So of course there is the core community of Geneva-based diplomats, and in previous years, we used to do and run this conference in person as an in-person event, and then it was mostly Geneva-based diplomatic community. But now, as you said, this year we're running it in a hybrid format, so both in person on the ground and virtually as well in parallel. And that has enabled us to reach out to a much wider stakeholder base, and it's open to anyone interested in outer space discussions. We've also tried to make it as interactive as possible, so not just accessible, but also interactive, allowing questions at the end of each session, managed virtually, and I think that went very well and certainly enriched the discussions that we've seen yesterday and today. We're recording the event, so even for those who weren't able to participate yesterday and today, they can still be part of that wider conversation that we really want to kickstart with this debate. And I think
we have an absolute engaging audience as well, and I'm quite sure that many of you will send your questions to the Q&A box, as you know, and yes, we will play that out later on, but Robin and his team will answer these questions then later. So that's wonderful. So let's come to the core. So what topics has been discussed at this year's conference?
Okay, so the most pressing challenges and ideas how we can address them.
Beside climate change, of course.
Yeah, Indeed, indeed. Well, the first day really was very much focused on the challenges, quite a simple binary structure. The second day more solution oriented. So, as we all know, outer space has changed quite a bit. More and more actors are active in the outer space domain, and certainly even more are interested in the outer space domain, realizing how outer space issues affect pretty much life on Earth in general and across the board. And so during the first day, we focused very much on changes brought about by new state actors present and active in outer space, but also, of course, non-governmental entities that are increasingly active up there and in the more commercial sector that relates to outer space, of course. We also spent quite a bit of time focusing on the drivers of an arms race in outer space, looking at geopolitical rivalries, new enabling technologies, new doctrines that increasingly see outer space as an operational, if not even military, environment or domain, and the accelerated development of arms, quite frankly. And then to wrap up the first day, which really was full of rich and insightful discussions, we focused on dual use space technologies and the relevance, of course, of intent relating to the use of these kind of assets, the risk of miscalculation, misperception that can result from dual use structures.
Okay.
That was day one.
Yes,
day one. And then perhaps even more importantly, and also, for us at Unidia, of course, we're very much focused to move on from just doom and gloom, to move on from the breakdown narrative and really to look ahead and look for possible solutions. I think we really all need to make an effort to focus more on constructive solutions. It's easy to describe all the trends out there that are so challenging, and it's much harder to really boil it down to what solutions going forward might be feasible. So day number 2, and that's still ongoing, was focused on tools and approaches, and started with the consideration of the role and limits, first of all, of non-binding measures in addressing concerns related to space security. So non-binding measures, to give just 2 examples, maybe UN General Assembly Resolution 7536, reducing space threats through norms, rules and principles of responsible behavior, but other things as well, like the Hague Code of Conduct against ballistic missile proliferation. Then earlier today, they discussed legally binding solutions to space security, considering the key issues that would need to feature in such an instrument and the process that would be needed to take it forward and make it happen. So, there in the discussion, the Treaty on the Prevention of the Placement of Weapons in Outer Space, the threat or use of force against outer space objects featured quite prominently. And in the panel that's currently ongoing, I think taking place as we speak here, the panelists are discussing how, through the use of new and rapidly developing technologies, we can upscale space situational awareness and how that can help to better understand actions going on in outer space, and also help with the verification of certain types of agreements relating to space security. The last panel later today will be addressing the issue of wider governance measures, challenges, and ideas, and specifically, of course, the role of non-governmental entities and non-traditional stakeholders, and how they can be a part of the discussion and, of course, also part of the solution. So that, I think, covers pretty rich agenda that covers day 1 and 2.
Quite right. And I was very pleased to see in the agenda today and yesterday that many of the speakers you have here are contributors, regular contributors to SpaceWatch.Global. We have with Jessica West, she is our host for the Space Café Canada, Moriba Jah, who is on stage, I think right now. He has his own show, Moriba's Vox Populi, where he talks about space environment to a wider audience to foster this dialogue. And that's what it's all about. And I see not very, but there's a few similarities in the outreach that we have. So, but we talked about the hybrid, or the in-person event with the possibility to join virtually, what makes it then a hybrid event? So what is the takeaway from it? Does it work? Did it work for you?
I think so. I mean, to be very honest, when we started yesterday, we had a few technical hiccups initially, and I guess we've become over the course of COVID, we've become quite good at virtual events at the entire institute and in the many things that we do, and we're good at in-person events. Combining the two is still a bit of a challenge, and so it was yesterday when we first started. But I think apart from the technical challenge, we got that solved quite quickly, and then it took off. And to me, it really is the future to go forward with hybrid events. You get that in-person dimension that you need, the chats over coffee that are so important in the field that we're working in, and regarding all the sensitive issues that we're dealing with. But at the same time, you also have truly global outreach. And we did have truly global outreach. We had 900 people signing up, registering for this event. Given the technical level at which we're discussing still, that's a very high number. And for us, that's the kind of engagement that we're looking to. And since we at Unidir are, of course, very much focused on inclusive dialogue, to us, it's the more the merrier. And I think we're achieving this, and the hybrid format is a way to go in this regard.
Absolutely. As this conference is almost over, what do you hope that attendees, virtual or in person, take away with them? So in other words, so what are the objectives that you seek to achieve?
Quite simply, we hope that with this conference, we can help to improve international dialogue around space issues, to help to increase awareness about the changing dynamics in outer space and outer space policies, and what that means for wider debates and disarmament debates, arms control debates in particular. And of course, to inspire ideas for solution, to allow conversations and dialogue where we hope we can find some common ground among the different stakeholders. And if that can be the takeaway, as well as the constructive spirit that I think we've seen at this conference, which might also be due to its slightly more informal nature and setup. If this, spirit of cooperation and fruitful dialogue can be a takeaway from the conference, then I think that's great. And of course, the conference is just one piece in the wider puzzle. So it certainly doesn't end here. And our expectation very much is that this is a continuing dialogue. And of course, we will continue with another outer space conference next year.
That's wonderful transfer to my next and the last area of topics I have on my list is your space portfolio. So what comes next? So under Unidir, do you have any other work related to space beyond this conference? So I mean, you mentioned the other flagship conferences. How does that play together?
So yes, certainly. It's not just OS21 that we're doing. In fact, you asked earlier about the kind of vision that we have for the Institute going forward. And part of the vision is to make outer space a self-standing program increasingly. I have to say that with a small caveat, because whatever we do is funding dependent, as I explained earlier. But clearly, we're very much aware of all the momentum that is there. The commercial momentum, the political momentum around outer space. It's become an over $400 billion US dollars endeavor, so to say, and it's going to grow every year. Also politically, of course, increasingly relevant. Ever more traditionally non-spacefaring nations are realizing how space is also potentially affecting their economies, their financial sectors, their societies. And it's frankly becoming ever more relevant to life on Earth in so many ways. So we're very mindful of that, and that is why we've decided to proceed in our outer space research with a self-standing program. We have a long history at Unidir, I think, of working on outer space issues, but we're certainly minded to upscale this as the discussion is really taking off. And we have quite a list of ideas and research projects that we want to take forward in the coming years.
Could you provide a few examples of other work that Unidir is doing or wants to do in the future? Because I think that's very interesting. Also, as you said earlier on, we might think about to give space a more emphasis, more weight in it, just given the nature of the developments right now.
Yeah. So what we do regularly already now and have been doing for quite a while is publishing the regular space dossiers on different outer space security related challenges. What we want to do going forward, a number of things, research on across the spectrum of outer space security related challenges, but to give you a few kind of appetizers there. So industry dialogue, that's increasingly relevant, and in fact is something that we've already started in collaboration with UNODA recently. Industry dialogue, bringing industry actors to the table, inquiring what their perceptions are. What do they think are the most imminent security challenges that they're facing? They have day-to-day, practical experience of being in outer space, some of them at least. And so I think they need to be at the table to better inform discussions around these challenges, for us to be clearer about what their perceptions are. What do they think are the solutions? And what do they expect states should do in that regard? So that industry dialogue, which we've already started, and where again we hope that this will be a sequence of events spanning over the coming years. That's one important item, I think. And let me say on that occasion, more generally for UNIDIR, again, given that we occupy this unique nexus between the UN system and then other stakeholders, and especially also the private sector and civil society, we very much, want to get real, so to say, about multi-stakeholder dialogues that everyone speaks about. But what does that actually mean when you get into disarmament, arms control, very sensitive discussions? How can you bring in these different stakeholders in a really meaningful way? So experimenting with these types of formats is something that we want to do for outer space, but also beyond new technologies, cyber, artificial intelligence. Now, in terms of space-related research projects, what we also want to do is to develop is a space policy portal. More and more states now articulate their policies and positions regarding outer space strategies. So clearly they're thinking about it, but they're also being vocal about it, which is great because that allows us to collect all of these different positions, which I think makes for a most useful resource for everyone interested. We're going to make it public, of course, accessible, interactable where feasible. And it also, having a policy portal like this allows you to identify common ground. And sometimes I feel we kind of lose sight of the common ground that's still there in all the contentious discussions. And I think a policy portal can serve a very important role in this regard. Sometimes, we use different terminology, but if you take a closer look, some positions are not so far apart after all. And UNIDIR has been very successful with the cyber policy portal. So we're building on that success for outer space. We're pretty much replicating with some additional features this policy portal that we have. And let me mention, two more items if we have time. A space security lexicon is something that we want to develop. That's the future. A space security lexicon, because we feel that oftentimes there is misunderstanding as to the terminology, the terms that are being used in these discussions. And our idea is, to develop a lexicon around the common terms that we need to discuss outer space security issues, to translate this into all UN languages, and thereby hopefully, again, to facilitate discussions and to help people see common ground where maybe so far different terminology has precluded that.
Pretty cool. I'm interested to read that. So maybe then the answer is where starts space will be answered. So.
Indeed, yeah, we would not necessarily start with dual use and the more complicated matters.
I didn't say about it, just with a simple question, where does space start?
Yeah, no, and that is also, of course, but yeah, a difficult and question for many. Yeah, but these kind of discussions, and even if the lexicon cannot give all the answers, it could, of course, also show the different views that are out there to better grasp the term and understand that different actors may have different accord different meanings to a term when they use it. The last point, if I may, is what we have in mind is to upscale our educational activities around outer space. Now that the topic is really taking off in so many corners and in so many policy discussions, we certainly feel there is a certain appetite for more capacity building institutes. A lot of stakeholders have mentioned this to UNIDIR. There are some knowledge gaps and knowledge asymmetries perhaps in some of the discussions. And so we certainly want to answer to that demand. And we're thinking of online summer schools in collaboration with higher educational institutions and other players. We're certainly keen to leverage partnerships there, not to do it all out of our own depth. But educational activities, capacity building around outer space is certainly something that we feel we should upscale in the future.
Wow, I'm super impressed. You have us as SpaceWatch.Global on the hook whenever you need something from us. We're there. Thank you very much, Robin, for this wonderful interview.
Excellent. Thanks very much for having me today.
Great. So we are back. Thank you very much for your questions. We will get them over to Robin and come back to you on that. We will also continue to follow up on space security issues in our future Space Café web talks and in our magazine. And now I'm handing you back to Chiara.
And here I am again. Hello. So before we finish for today, I would like to announce our next upcoming events. So on the 5th of October at 4 p.m. CEST, we have 33 minutes with Mike Simmons on astronomy and the overview effect. Then after that, on the 12th of October at 4 p.m. CST, we have our 33 minutes with Dr. Michael Byers about the open letter of the Outer Space Institute on ASAT tests. And on the 19th of October at 4 p.m. CST, we have 33 minutes with Dr. Agnieszka Lukaschek of Planet. So stay tuned because all our events are going online on Eventbrite, as always. Again, we say this every time, but we really appreciate your feedback. So check in with us on Twitter, Facebook, and LinkedIn. Don't forget to sign up for our daily and bi-weekly newsletters. And if you want to treat yourself with something special, become a Space Watcher today. Your support will help us greatly. So take out your credit card and visit our fan shop at shop.spacewatch.global. Thank you all very much for your interest today. And a huge thank you also to Robin and the entire UNIDIR team for the support and for the inspiring talk and for having us here at the conference. And thanks again to the team behind the scenes as well for doing that great job week in and week out.
I think we challenged them today quite a bit.
Yes.
So great job, guys.
So I hope that you all stay safe and stay healthy. Thank you for joining us. Hopefully we'll see you in the next weeks as well. And in the meantime, don't forget to visit our website and follow us on social media. And don't forget,
become a Space Watcher.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Bye-bye.